So, hi everyone. We have a wonderful list of panelists that will be joining us for this great conversation. First up, we have Narissa Allen, who is the president and CEO of Black Business Association in Vancouver, BC. We also have with us Dr. Jamila Aman, who's the executive director of the Canadian Black Chamber of Commerce. And with us, we also have Mr. Raymond Geist, who's the Executive Director of Tropicana Community Services. Excellent. So good morning, everyone. We're excited to kick things off with our first panel today. As you can see with us, we have a great group of leaders leading Black-led organizations, Black-led, Black-focused organizations across Canada. To kick things off, given that this conversation is about creating wealth within the Black ecosystem of Canada, first question is really around, there's been a lot of movement in the recent years around economic development, access to capital, as we know that that is a key issue for a lot of Black entrepreneurs in this country. And so what are some ways that you believe that we can improve access to capital for BIPOC entrepreneur businesses to ensure that they have the financial resources to thrive within their businesses? Let's start off with you.
Okay.
Please.
Thank you, and it's good to be here, and just congratulations to CASA on the Friends of Africa conference. Expanding access to capital, and this has been a, we all know this is one of the one of the big barriers to Black businesses, allowing them to grow and scale. Thinking about financial institutions and the criterions that they use to qualify Black businesses for loans, I think it would be important to encourage the use of alternative data for underwriting, right? So expanding the categories or the kinds of data they use to qualify Black businesses, I think is one way to expand access to capital. I think we could look at expanding the support for minority depository institutions, so a Black credit union. We know that a minority-owned or where there's a majority minority ownership in such institutions, they make larger amounts of loans to small businesses where Black businesses are overrepresented. And so that's going to have an impact on Black businesses within that SME category. But I think that you could go a step further, not just waiting for that trickle down to happen, but you need to carve out intentional or specific provisions that target Black businesses. And those are just a couple of sort of top of mind things that I think can have sort of big bang for the buck, so to speak, pardon the pun, but that can have large impact on the Black businesses and Black entrepreneurs.
Well said, thank you. I'd like to ask the same questions to our other panelists. So Dr. Iman, please.
Good morning, congratulations, the CASA Foundation and the Friends of Africa. It's wonderful to see Friends of Africa from every corner of the world, you know, all shades of colors, the blue, black, yellow, white, all of us, Friends of Africa. Thank you so much for being Friends of Africa. And it's a privilege to be here today. I'm going to talk, wear my hat for the Canadian Black Chamber of Commerce. So access to capital, I would say come to the Canadian Black Chamber of Commerce. And I'm so happy that Christelle, who is the past president of the Canadian Black Chamber of Commerce, is here. I'm not looking for an increased salary, but it won't hurt. Don't worry, make the recommendation. So I would say come to the Canadian Black Chamber of Commerce. All starts with education. And one of the things and the challenges that I've seen that prevents entrepreneurs, you know, from BIPOC community accessing is the, credit rating and all that. And I think the Canadian Black Chamber of Commerce does very well, providing that educational piece. First of all, providing personal, financial literacy, and then, entrepreneurial and financial literacy. These are the two things I would say. Additionally, I would say if we're going to wait for the institutions to provide us money, I think we have got a long way to go. I think I've applaud my colleagues' recommendation in the long term to do all this big stuff is amazing, but it's not going to be given to us, so we need to create it. And you know what? We need to leverage the power of leveraging, investing other people's money. I can tell you as a little fish, myself personally, the first thing that I did was use my RSP to buy my first little house. And then I leveraged that to create a market on Parliament Street. Did I think it was possible when I came to Canada in 1984? Absolutely not. But I just leveraged, investing other people's money, which is the leveraging my little house and getting, what is it called? Sometimes English escapes when I'm on stage, I wish I was speaking in Arabic. But anyways, you know what? Getting that, the equity from my house in order to invest on Parliament. So I created a little market of 16 vendors on the main floor and a big vendor on the second floor. It still exists if you can check it out. It's a marketplace for 16 vendors. This is the little way of a little girl from the bushes of Africa can do. Imagine what we can do, all of us. I'm not saying this is a cookie cutter and what I did will work everywhere. It doesn't. This is my own way of doing things. But I want to give you an example of the Somali community. You know what? The Main Street banks are not going to give us credit. Some of us have got the 9 social insurance number. We're still refugees. Some of us, we don't have the credit rating. Some of us, it's just racism and discrimination. We need to name it as it is. It's not going to be given to us. So what did the Somali community do? There are over 10 financial institutions. They call them the Hawala. They do money transfer. They're called Qaran, Tawakkal, Amal. All these companies, they provide financial support to the Somali community. It's not by accident that you see on Western and Lawrence many shops and companies. It's not by accident on Parliament Street you see so many Somali businesses. It's not by accident that you see one of the 4 richest man is Somali who owns one of these companies. You know what? It's not by accident because the Somali community, they decided that they're not going to wait for mainstream. They need to do it on their own. And they did it, and they're doing it very well. Could they do better? Absolutely. I'm not saying that we need to ignore, the big picture stuff that my colleague here mentioned, that while we're still pursuing, to create our own credit unions, our own financial institutions, we can do on a small scale our own little bits and pieces. There's also something called, I think in the Caribbean it's called susu. In the Somali community, they call it shalong. In Arabic, we call it sandug. What do people do? Gather money and somebody gets it and invest that money. Well, guess what? I'm not Somali, but proud of my Somali friends and relatives that they do that very well. They do a susu of 100 and 200,000, and they provide it to somebody to start a business. So these are small things that I've learned, but don't forget, come back to the Canadian Black Chamber of Commerce. Do come. We provide the training and access to capital as well. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And definitely the same question, please, Narissa Allen. I'd love to hear your perspective.
Certainly. I agree with my colleagues. There's many ways that we can really increase access to capital for Black-owned businesses. I think at the Black Business Association of BC, we really want to take it into our own hands. We think that, we can't wait on banks, we can't wait on financial institutions, as my colleague Dr. Ahmad mentioned, to provide us these opportunities and this access. We have to create it for ourselves. So what we've done at our association is we've created those market access opportunities for businesses to make their own money. We have to, if we want them to be sustainable in the long term, we have to provide them with tools and ways for them to make money that's sustainable. So we have a procurement program where we train and we ready businesses to get contracts with the government, to get contracts with other businesses. We have an online database and e-commerce platform called BlackBiz Global, and that platform allows businesses, whether they have a website or not, they can sell on our website, on our platform, to increase their access to market. We call it Blamazon. We also have investment and opportunities offshore. So what we look at is how are we connecting Canadian businesses to the African continent. We visited Ghana in 2022, and we started with Ghana because they seemed very open to welcoming the diaspora, but we plan to visit all of the African countries. And there we found opportunities for investment, we found opportunities for businesses to collaborate with other businesses, we found vendors for our stores, and we're going back. We went there, we created content from that journey, and now we're going back with 20 more entrepreneurs this December. So it's about showing the possibilities of what's available, how do we increase their access through the different revenue streams. We have a store in Vancouver where we have over 25 Black-owned businesses that we showcase and we sell their products. Another avenue for them to make money. It's about how do we create multiple revenue generating streams for businesses so that no matter what comes along in the future, they are able to sustain and be sustainable in the long term. And if they can get grants and loans along the way as a transition step, that's fine. But we believe we have to put the power in our own hands to create our destiny.
Well said. I love the insights that you all shared. I think, from access to loan opportunities with the larger financial institutions is one angle. Looking at it from a micro perspective and group economics is great. And then obviously being able to expand internationally really helps these businesses have the opportunity to grow and excel. And then oftentimes from an access to capital standpoint, one perspective is actually being able to get the loan to either get your business going or to scale it. But then there's also the VC angle in terms of really getting that pre-seed investment to really be able to take your business to the next level. So Narissa, you spoke about the international markets and really helping those businesses. So I'd love to hear your perspective, all of you actually, when you think about the international market. Oftentimes some of the most successful businesses in Canada, Black-owned or Black-led or not, just across the board, most of them are doing business outside of this country. I mean, it's a numbers game. We have a smaller population, and so you need to do business outside of the country to really scale at a massive level. So I'd love to hear from all of you, some of the different programs and initiatives that your organizations are doing to help entrepreneurs in this capacity. I'd like to start with you, Mr. Geist. Please share some of the initiatives that your organization is doing.
We're not doing any initiatives.
Okay. Mike?
That are working on expanding international opportunities. The initiative that Tropicana Community Services has been engaged in is one that is providing capacity building funds and grants to Canadian Black-led and Black-serving not-for-profit organizations across the country. So it's really a national program and it's contained nationally. So in terms of the international question you're asking, we're not engaged in that yet.
Excellent. And what about Narissa? Would you like to
Certainly.
share more context?
Internationally, because we have the store, we feel an obligation to ensure that businesses who are not quite ready to be able to bring their product to market, we have a retail incubator. And that helps businesses, one, to get into our stores so that they can sell their product at the retail market. But then we work with them to build their business so they can get into big box stores. And we work on export readiness. So we work with Export Navigator in BC. We work with the provincial and federal governments so that we can ready the businesses and give them the tools that they need in order to export their products around the world. We've had sessions with trade commissioners from Germany, from Belgium. We have a very close relationship with the U.S. consulate. We've had the consulate from Ghana as well present to our members, and it's about providing them access, understanding, amalgamating the information so that they know, what do you need in order to have a business plan that's going to be effective for exports? How do we link these businesses to one another? And a part of that is our platform. The national database we have links these businesses to one another. They know where to look for. We're building out hubs for the Caribbean. We're building out hubs for African countries so that businesses can find one another. It's not just about doing business to consumer, but it's about doing business to business. Increasing the awareness. Just like how I said, we went to Ghana. How do we create opportunities and show people that there are opportunities to increase that international market access. And we have to do it by showing it while providing those skills development that they need in order to export.
Absolutely. And Dr. Ahmad, please.
Well, thank you. I think the Canadian Black Chamber of Commerce, being a young organization, we are doing it on a small scale. We've done the first, we sponsored the first Black Expo in Canada this March, the inaugural Black Expo, and that was the open opportunity to do business with other countries. And so that's the radar. Today I came from a retreat, a 3-day retreat, and that's one of the things that was discussed, that we need to open opportunities. The Canadian market, as you indicated, Crystal, is small, so we need to link the entrepreneurs internationally. The other thing that we're trying to do is leveraging the power of partnership. We partnered with the Jamaican American Chamber of Commerce, and we have an intent to partner with other Chamber of Commerce internationally so that we can allow our entrepreneurs to do business in other countries of the world. I think this is a key area. Growing their businesses nationally is really important. However, also taking it to the next level is very important. We have 9 programs, and the program for the CBCC start from ideation stage, people who just have a business idea or making under 10,000, to the last program, which is called the Mentor Protege program, which is companies that are doing 100,000 who want to take it to the million. And we are targeting this group of people in order to do business internationally. And that's one of the area where we want to grow. It's still in planning stage. And next year, stay tuned for the Canadian Black Chamber of Commerce Black Expo. Do come and participate. We're hoping it will be in the Black Business Week in October. Unfortunately, we were not able to do it this year. We didn't get the funding. If there are any funders in the room, I can take the money today, maybe in a bag or any form. But these are the plans. So we hope to do in 2024, in a big way. The first, we did the inaugural Black Expo. We want to do the first Black Expo October during Business Week, and that's where we want to target companies that want to do business internationally, to support them and to create those linkages. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. So thank you so much for that. I'd love to know, so Mr. Gies, it's great that your organization is deploying capital to organizations that need, other nonprofits that need capacity. And so for you, as you're helping these organizations that are here to serve our community, what are some of the opportunities or what are some of the needs that you've identified that your organization can benefit from to further support these organizations? Do you see any gaps in that space to really help them further their mandate?
I think that having provided or built the capacity, providing grants and funds for organizations, grassroots organizations to build their capacity, and on Tropicana's part, we have distributed about $16 million or so over the last 3 or so years to about 200 organizations across the country. And Tropicana, being one of the founders of the Black National Funders Intermediary Network, where we work with Black Business Initiative in Halifax, Group Transet in Quebec, and Africa Center out west, collectively, as a network, we have distributed somewhere in the neighborhood of $60 million over the last 3.5 years to over 1,000 organizations across the country. So essentially what we've been able to do and what we've become is a bit of a group of experts in organizational life cycle management. Okay, so now that many of these organizations have built their capacity in a variety of areas, the next step, now that they're, we might say investment ready, in order to protect that investment, we need to see further investment in things like capital assist would be one area a gap that we would want to see filled. We need to provide funds to the greatest degree possible to now help, programming continue, and not just continue, but to scale. So helping organizations scale and move along to the next point in the life cycle, organizational life cycle continuum. And so those are just a couple, 3 areas that I think we could approach and gaps we need to fill going forward.
Excellent, excellent. That's impressive. 60 million in over the past 3 years in deployment of capital is quite impressive. I'd love to pivot a little bit. And so all of you have shared the great work that your organizations are doing, speaking about what are some of the ways that entrepreneurs can have access to capital to grow their businesses. So, and we've also seen some of the shifts in terms of the actual government playing a role in making sure that there is distribution of these fundings. We know that there was the Federal Entrepreneurship Black Loan Program. We know that some of the private banks also launched their own programs. But from a policy perspective, what are your thoughts on what changes in policy and regulation are necessary to really level the playing field for businesses to help remove some of the barriers that BIPOC entrepreneurs face? Dr. Aman, I'd love to start with you on this.
I think the policy work is a big part of how entrepreneurs can scale up and to do well. I think the restrictions that are put in the banks, you know, in the financial institutions, I think those restrictions, some of them don't apply to our clientele. First of all, when you're starting from -0, and those who have been in the country for centuries, I think we are looked upon with the same lens. I think the policies need to be BIPOC friendly, and we need to have particular criteria for qualifying those individuals. When we went to the major banks where they're administering these funds, we're asking them, okay, what's the statistics? Your rejection rate? Oh, we don't keep that kind of data. I think banks and financial institutions need to be mandatory for them to keep this data. And what is the rejection rate? And why did they reject them? I think we do know that there is a knowledge gap and an expertise gap, and also the credit rating is really important. And I think we need to do our part as organizations, grassroots organizations, empowering and training and educating, you know, our participants to ensure that the importance of credit rating. I think our community lacks in this area. A lot of I can't say all of them, but some of our program participants, what we see is they're experts in the business that they do, but there is a knowledge gap, and they have a hindrance, a big hindrance, which is their own personal credit rating. How could they get that piece? So as grassroots, we need to look into that piece, and also from policy perspective, the lenient policies where these rules, you know, can apply. I've seen in the past there was a program called, I'm too old, in the 90s, Calmedo Metro Fund. And Calmedo Metro Fund, what they did was they were giving loans, but the loans were given, it was group lending. And the group lending was you have to have minimum 4 people, and the 4 people approve each other's loans. At the same time, the program was used to build credit. So while they got access to some small capital, they're still building their credit. The program was so successful that it ran out of money, and then the former credit union, Alternate Savings, bought that program, and they ran that program, and they're doing very well. Alternate Savings, you know, they are the alternative to Main Street banking, where their policies are a bit lenient and friendly to BIPOC community, and while individuals access capital, they're building their credit and learning and all that. So I feel from a policy perspective, these are some of the policies that need to look upon the BIPOC community and, you know, make those policies BIPOC community friendly so that our community can access capital.
Thank you. Narissa.
Yeah, I think, as my colleague Dr. Ahmad mentioned, policies are not friendly to us. And we have to start to reimagine what a policy is and looks like. And I think that we have to take away the current policies and build them from scratch, because at this point they don't meet our needs, and they don't reflect the climate of the Black population. Therefore, if we want to be able to be successful in the institutions that are here in Canada, we need them to take the step to bring us to the table to create new policies. I really don't see a lot of benefit in trying to work with the policies that we have in place now. I think the objective and the goal should be, how do we look at what's in place and recreate those, and recreate them with the lens of who are the people that we're trying to reach. We have a diverse cultures across Canada. What do they need? What are their cultures like? What are their traditions like? And how do we draft new policies that are really going to be beneficial and allow everyone to have a fair, fair access and fair playing field? One such example, I had an organization come to us and they wanted us to, they wanted to present to our members about a TAP program, and it was about export development. And that's one of our areas. We want to increase export readiness for our members. But the conversation I had to have with them was, when I looked at the criteria, for one of our members to be able to be applicable, they had to be making over $500,000 a year. I'm like, well, that's 1% of our membership. That's really not going to cut it. And I'm not going to bring forward, a program that's not going to be applicable to our members. It's not going to be useful. It's not going to be impactful. We want to see, you come to us with something that's going to be impactful for us, that's going to be beneficial for us. So the conversation is not going to be, yes, we will have, and you can present our members. The conversation will be, you and I need to talk about how we can adjust your policy so that it is beneficial for our members. And those are the kind of conversations that we have to have.
Excellent, thank you. And I'd love to hear your final thoughts on that, please, Mr. Geist.
I agree with my friend across the table here. The policy level of analysis is absolutely critical. Absolutely critical to leveling the playing field for Black communities and Black businesses. I think, and just as a couple of pragmatic areas. I think when you look at the barriers that Black businesses face, Black business owners face to commercial real estate ownership, that's another key one. Too many of our businesses are renting space, right? Too few of our businesses actually own the space in which they carry out the business. So I think it's important to look at that level of analysis, because those racial disparities in ownership, they have major ramifications for Black control over community development, right? When we own the spaces in which we're doing that business, we have greater control. So we tend to focus on home ownership, right, as a pathway to wealth creation and intergenerational wealth creation. But I think the pathways to commercial real estate ownership are also key. So I think as a practical policy step, now this is at the municipal level, of course, but I think that we could look at ways to leverage or reimagine and utilize economic development tax credits, right, to help small businesses, which again we're overrepresented in that sector. And again, carve-outs targeted at Black communities would be important, but particularly at municipalities tend to invite outside investment, right? Outside businesses to come into the city to build and employ and do business. And so the tax credit policies are geared to attract that, but I think there needs to be perhaps a shift, and this happens, there's some cases we can point to, but to foster and encourage local, and in our case, Black businesses, and so, carve out some economic development tax credits that incentivize local businesses and local owners to do business. The other policy area I would look at would be that around data gathering, and this is across all levels of government. I think not just the municipal level. Governments are the largest purchasers of goods, among, if not the largest purchasers of goods, right? Everything from software, construction, services, they're buying everything, financial and asset management products and services, right? They're just a huge purchaser. So, and there's progress in this area, but I think that governments have to set policies that require the gathering and sharing of race-based data with respect to the race and ethnicity of the owners of the businesses that they are doing business with. So that's as a first step, and they need to make that data aggregated and publicly available, right? So in the gathering of that data, we can set better metrics, right? What gets measured gets done, right? and we can set better metrics, there can be better accountability, and we can track over time, right? And target the areas that need attention, right? So, you know, those are some, and I've gone on probably long enough, but I think those are some key, just some practical, and this doesn't have to take long, you know. This doesn't have to take long, right? You know, in the tax credit case, these are our tax dollars. Our tax dollars fund a lot of those tax credits that they make available, right? So we're not asking for something that we aren't already making a contribution to, right? So that's it for me. Those are my sort of just a couple of practical policy areas I think we could look to.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that, all of you, on your insights on that. I believe policy is so critical, and it's important for us to be engaged on that front as a community to ensure that that is represented and that it can be available past just our generation. Policy is critical to really have effective change, and we also want to ensure that marginalized communities are also reflected in federal budgets as well, not just as minority groups, and then when we actually see the subset, we see that it's not divided equally, but actually specific groups for especially Black communities. It has to be reflected, and that's one of the ways to really ensure that our government is held accountable, to ensure that there is fair contributions to Black communities. With that being said, I want to thank all of our panelists here for our panel. I think we can take maybe one question from the audience, and then we'll pass it on to Dr. Fearon for closing remarks. Any questions? Okay, I see a young lady in the back over there. Please, do you want to?
Yeah, no, we are based in BC, but we work with everyone across the country. So we have, in our store, we have entrepreneurs that ship their product from here in Toronto to our store for us to showcase and sell it there. We have our Afro World Expo, which is the biggest trade show of Black-owned and African and Caribbean businesses in Western Canada. And that we've had, our first year was in June this year, and we had members from across the country, including one of the businesses that was mentioned earlier, Mishnat. She was at our expo. So we can provide support in terms of all of our tangible initiatives, the marketplace, the Afro World Expo, the store, but we also can provide the educational tools that we offer, business planning and things like that, because we can do it virtually. So all of our services and products can be accessed by any Black-owned entrepreneur in Canada.
Okay, thank you so much. And because I'm probably not going to be able to say anything again, Dr. Fearon, yourself, Mr. Is it Guist? Raymond Guist?
Close enough.
Okay, my bad if I'm butchering it. I'm a very devoted entrepreneur in empowering the Black community, and I've been doing it much. And I ask that you guys please take the time to come and speak to me at my table, because I'd love to network with you and get your contacts so that we can further make things happen. Holler back, please. Thank you. Elemental notes, I'm right outside.
That's how you do it. Good for you. Speak up, ask for what you need. I love it. That's what it's about, being an entrepreneur, taking the chance and the opportunity. Again, I want to thank all of our panelists here. You guys have heard about the great work that they're doing, and I hope you found this conversation fruitful. I'll now pass it on to to Dr. Fearon, who is the president of the George Brown College, for closing remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I'd just like to recognize the panelists again, and might we give them another round of applause. Without question, this is a very important topic that was discussed, creating wealth through Black, Indigenous, and racialized businesses. And as we think about this topic, I'd also like to take the moment to just acknowledge that we're located on the traditional lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and other Indigenous peoples. And as we think about that in terms of our relationship with Canada, with Indigenous peoples, it's also to recognize incredible contributions made by Black Canadians and other Canadians in building an amazing society and country that we enjoy. As we also think about wealth, I think it's also important to recognize that entrepreneurship within Canada, small and medium-sized businesses represent 60 to 70% of overall economic activity and are the drivers of overall wealth and prosperity in Canada. It's also interesting to just note for a moment, by way of example, about 70,000 business owned in Canada is actually by Black-owned businesses. As well, if we take a look at the percentage of businesses owned by racialized communities and Indigenous peoples, again, a really significant portion of businesses operating within the Canadian setting comes from these populations. And as well, not only are one of the fastest growing populations in Canada, but the business ownership by these groups are also an incredibly significant growth component of business activity and GDP activity within Canada. Anyone who grew up in Toronto, for example, will know of the evolution from Bathurst and Bloor in 60s and 70s to Eglinton in the 80s. If you go to the Danforth today, just an incredible set of businesses, and this is true right across Canada. So visiting across Canada, you also see that incredible vibrancy in anything from fintechs to restaurants to barbershops to manufacturing. All of this is part of the vibrancy that we see. But I also think it's very, very important for us to also recognize that you've got 55 countries in Africa making up an entire economic union or economic network. And in that case, you have there over $3 trillion worth of GDP activities in the Caribbean. You have over $85 billion in economic activities amongst 15 countries. That then says that when we think about Canadian economy and our future competitiveness and prosperity, it will be highly dependent on the capacity of Canada to tap into the Black and racialized communities to be able to be competitive and to form trade relationships across economies, not just within Canada. Within the Canadian setting, I think you heard from the panelists not only the challenges, but some of the opportunities. On the challenge side, access to capital. I have to tell you that when you mentioned Susu, my heart went out. And part of it, any kid who grew up with West Indian parents and my mom, Jamaican parents, by way of example, you know that the furniture and house that you sat on or lived in was likely a product of Susu. So absolutely. What I'm getting at is that quite often we underestimate community social capital. We underestimate the knowledge that individuals such as those on the panel that they have forged in terms of their capacity and being able to tap into community social capital and social capacity in terms of entrepreneurship and building. But simultaneously, we heard on the policy front that government for all the people of the society, not some, all the people of society, have an obligation to create policies and programs that work to build on that social capital within community, that builds on the entrepreneurship within community to be able to make sure that businesses and entrepreneurs within community are vibrant and being able to advocate and support the prosperity of Canada as a whole. We also heard as well, though, that there are an incredible set of businesses and organizations that have been created to take a look at the broad construct of community wealth and community business. And in the case of Tropicana, by way of example, that was being done in terms of the examples. We know that without strong families, strong communities, strong opportunities, that foundation for effective entrepreneurship, effective businesses can be limited in that regard. So as I think of the key messages coming from the panel, it's the first item is the recognition of the incredible strength and vibrancy of businesses within the Black community. And it really is an applaud to the work that's done year in, year out by the Friends of Africa, by CASA, in being able to create a forum for dialogue, for networking, for individuals to be able to ask a question, and as well in asking that question to say, why not take a look at my business? To be able to have a forum like this that says, why not be able to take the moment to take a look at Black businesses and your procurement policies and programs and initiatives to be able to see how you extend constructs of EDI and indigeneity to be able to have that included and linked into your procurement policies, such that small and medium-sized businesses and larger businesses within the Black communities and others can access some of those opportunities to be able to bring forward their value proposition, their value add, and their innovation. So what I heard personally from the panel today is a set of items. One is excellence, excellent set of individuals who are doing excellent things, not only for the community, but for entrepreneurship and business in Canada. Second, I heard opportunities that the Black community, by way of example, that stands at 1.5 million today, will be about 3 million by 2041. That then says that that is a market that can be accessed only if by some chance we're delivering goods and services valued by the community as well as by individuals within the community. We know that there's a global context to this, and we know that the globe is not an easy place, but our entrepreneurs that foster and grow at a local level also build the platform to become global participants, and we know that some of those businesses are increasingly doing that because of where we are on technology. So please join me in recognizing all the informative points made by our panelists. Please join me in recognizing and thanking them for such an outstanding contribution to this conference. Thank you so much.